everybody. So I'm here with David, and you've been introduced via your little video, and we're talking about why emotional intelligence is important for adults in early years education. So welcome, David. How are you today?
I'm fine, and thank you very much for having me.
That's all right. It's a pleasure. Have you had a busy day?
Oh yes, I have. Yes, I've been beavering away on other cool fire things. Yes, I've been actually working on a cool fire book as well. So I'm beginning to put my existing workshops together and things, and producing a very, very practical book with exercises and things you can do every day.
Right, that sounds really interesting. I've been talking to the Philippines, India, China already. Yeah, wow. Today. So been busy for me too, but I can't get over the heat. Soon we're going to have a huge thunderstorm, I feel.
I do.
But we'll see. We'll see.
I'm not on the heat either.
Right. So what do we mean by emotional intelligence? I think we better start there, really.
I think that's a good place of departure. Well, what I've done is taken the Daniel Goleman ideas. He's seen as like the godfather of emotional intelligence. And really, it's a series of external ideas, in his case, which you apply to behaviors, really. So it's as simple as, at its most basic, the first thing really is the capacity to recognize and manage your own feelings. And then the second part is the idea about recognizing and responding to other people's feelings. And what he came up with was what he called a quadrant, so a square. And the first two parts of the square is to do with yourself, so self-awareness and self-management. And the other two parts of the square is, so that first part applies to you. And then the second part of the square applies to others. So that's social awareness and managing relationships. And he started up actually with a 5-part square, if you can do that. And that was in 1998. So 2002, it became this 4-part quadrant. So I think that's as good a definition as any to start with.
That's quite recent.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
So where does self-regulation come in that? Which quadrant makes sense?
Oh, really? Self-regulation. So that would be in the sort of second part. So it's the 2 parts are interchangeable in each part of the, if you imagine the top of the quadrant and the bottom of the quadrant. So the self-management comes in the top of the but you have to be self-aware to start with, really.
I mean, self-regulation or co-regulation is something we talk about a lot in early years. It's become a fashionable word, if that makes sense. Everybody's been talking about it, I think everybody understands now what that means, but it's a new word that came into our repertoire in early years. Yeah. Okay, so tell us a little bit about what you do, what your role is, and what you do.
Well, I trained as a spiritual healer for 4 years between 2000 and 2004, and nothing to do with any religion or belief. It's like Reiki, really. But I was teaching at the time, doing supply work, etc. And more people began to ask me, look, can I put what I do into practical workshops as such, before it really became, well-being became a real thing in schools. And so I thought, okay, I'll give it a go. And it became very, very popular, really. So I started with 1 workshop for teachers, which is for adults. And now there's over 25 different workshops under 2 or 3 different programs. So for various strands, really. And really the whole ideas have evolved as I've gone. So what I do is all about emotional intelligence, but not so consciously applied from the outside. I'm much more working from the inside out rather than from the outside in. So in other words, what I do helps you to create a state of like energized calm at the beginning.
Right.
Okay, so that takes time, but there's ways in which you can apply very simple things, but just takes practice. and therefore it stops you therefore being reactive to things. It helps you to defeat fatigue and all the things which you well, you would sort of get to if you consciously apply Daniel Goleman stuff, etc. But it doesn't really give you a way to do that, unlike what I've done. So what I'm
right.
Yeah,
so when we're talking about emotional intelligence for the adults, this is to help us when we're firefighting 20 things at the same time, and we've got children around our knees, all needing us. You know, when there are other things that we've also got to concentrate on. So you've got some helpful tips for us then.
I have indeed, yes. And to start with, though, it might be worth mentioning, though, that so many of us, in fact, all of us, has that voice in our heads, don't we, all the time, tend to be our sort of worst critic in a way. And you might come across the work of Eckhart Tolle, The Power of Now. Here's, well, the recent edition of the book, but he wrote this about 40 years ago, in effect. So it's all because everything you've done has brought you to this point, so to speak. It doesn't matter whether it's disastrous or great or whatever. Everything you've done is been up to you, in effect. And all the time, though, that voice in our head is saying it's there to, if you like, stop the avoidance, is to create the avoidance of pain, in effect. So it's meant to be acting in our best interests. But everything we do, we're never, well, quite, because so often we're not happy with where we are. And we're always looking ahead. And the power of now doesn't exist. Now doesn't exist. We're always, don't worry if I keep doing this, or I'm, yes, I'll then get to somewhere better. But actually, the first part of the journey is the acceptance of now, exactly where we are. And it doesn't matter whether it's good, bad, disastrous, whatever, it's now. And that's either you're working with small children, or you have children recently, or whatever, and you're like overwhelmed by the whole experience, perhaps, and you're continuously exhausted, etc. But you've chosen that, in effect, and that's a good place to start. So therefore, your nagging voice in your head.
Sorry, what do you mean you've chosen that? What do you mean by that?
Well, I mean, chosen to have children as such,
right, okay.
If they're of your own, so to speak,
or work with children.
Or work with children, you've chosen to go into that. But quite often, the whole experience can be quite overwhelming. And that tiredness and exhaustion cuts in, and then everything starts to sort of snowball a bit, perhaps. So this is a way, really, of looking at the body differently, looking at the mind differently, and being able to, like, use some very simple tools in a framework, which, which it's using that emotional intelligence, but in a very, very practical way.
Right. Okay. So how do we start doing this then?
Well,
I'm certainly a planner, and I certainly have a horrible person that sits on my shoulder and tells me all sorts of nasty things about which all stem from my childhood. I understand that, but when you're feeling stressed, you don't have time to say, "Be quiet, you on my shoulder." You know, I can do this. Da 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 da. You know, it just takes over sometimes.
Definitely. Well, you're being driven, aren't you, in effect? Well, the crucial thing with early years, really, is the idea of attachment. So the thing being is that if you're continuously tired, etc., the one big thing about attachment is consistency. And I came across a guy on LinkedIn called Dan Wuori. So that's W-U-O-R.
Yeah, I've come across him too.
Oh, right. He's got a new book.
He's got some lovely videos. People need to go and search them out.
Oh, fantastic. Well, he's been talking about attachment over this last week on LinkedIn. And really, the basis of attachment, like I said, is consistency. So your child, even if you're on your own or within working with them, is they have got to have predictability about what you're doing, in effect. So if you're feeling sort of under the weather or continuously stressed and tired, it activates, in effect, you're projecting at fight flight upon the child, that classic stress reaction, in effect. So therefore, managing your own stress is really, really important on that. So basically, I start from 3 basic principles. So first of all, and the whole education system kicks in from an early age, from, once preschool, etc. But we are much more than mind. Everything is geared to mind. So the whole education system is geared to mind. So you introduce a concept, you make sure the child understands it, a test to complete it. Could be, just a simple act of play or something like that. And then you move on to the next concept. But we are so much more than that. We are mind, body, and feelings. And in this context, you say, well, what on earth is mind? I'll come to that. So the second one is that everything we do, everyone thinks, again, with the thought process again, that everything starts with a thought. But I would say that every thought is triggered by a feeling. So if you could change the feeling as and when you wanted to, you change the thought and you change the action. Change the feeling, change the thought, change the action. And that's what we'll be looking at how to do. And then the third part is that every feeling creates a biochemical response in you. So it's actually taking a view on the body, begin to understand that biochemistry in a simple way that will then enable you to take control more of the process. And that brings us to, I've done some diagrams and things here, but I think it might come out a bit, so okay. On the right-hand side, you can see how most people see the body, in effect. So you've got the brain, and it's all brain top down, and that controls all the other parts of the, so your gastrointestinal system or hormonal system, etc. Now, what I'd like to propose is that instead of the brain being at the top of the tree, the brain's in the background. So you can see from this part of things, you've got lots of arrows around here, but it's actually a background flow coordinating all these other parts. In other words, we're shifting the balance from the brain to the intelligent body. Now, what enables that? So, in 1997, a woman called Dr. Candace Pert discovered neuropeptides. And that is the brain-body connection. So what neuropeptides are, there's over 100 of them. And they are released by nerve endings, by neurons. And they enable intercell communication. But each one of these chemicals has a definite function. For example, orexin governs appetite and sleep and mood. Vasopressin regulates water balance. So a lot of these neuropeptides are released all at once, quite often down your spinal cord, but the cells know what to do with them. And they also go to virtually everywhere in the body. So up until 2000 or so, it was believed that there's a barrier between blood and brain and the rest of the body in terms of blood. So it's almost seen the brain was almost like a sealed unit. But you find neuropeptides in your bone marrow, your immune system is so important, your T cells and B cells, because the neuropeptides attach themselves in a pattern to the various T cells and B cells, and they carry them around the body. So a healthy immune system is a really important part of mental health, as is various other parts, which I'll come to in a minute. So really, once you see the body, instead of being brain top down, as coordinating a flow of activity around the body, then you can start to introduce things which encourages that flow, because you have muscle memory in your cells, in effect. So, for example, 98% of us was not present a year ago. The body reproduces parts of itself via these intelligent cells. So, for example, our skin completely reproduces itself every month. A new stomach lining every 4 days. a new skeleton, a whole skeleton every 3 months. And so your body is it's self-regulating in a way, with the brain becoming a verb, not a noun. So it doesn't sit there as a sort of command HQ. It's there coordinating in the background. So the more healthier things you do to stimulate various things in the body, the more it picks up on it, the cells pick up on it and reproduce that behavior, so to speak. So it's an integrated circuit through, it's like I said, it's integrated. So I'm trying to think of the word bio. I'll think of it in a minute. Anyway, so it's therefore working with an awareness of that. And so a couple of other things as well to be aware of. First of all, the vagus nerve. So you can do things on an everyday basis, which will actually stop this adrenal shot all the time. So that's the response that most people are familiar with. So adrenaline and cortisol, sorry, adrenaline and cortisol. So adrenaline puts you on standby, literally it just puts you, and that doesn't take much, especially if you're looking after young children. That can actually exist for, say, about every 27 minutes it takes for the body to clear an adrenal shot. But quite often something will cut in again, doesn't have to be much, and you're triggered again. So after about 24 hours, the body thinks, hang on a minute, we're not just on standby here. We need to put you on much longer basis, so to speak. Yeah. So you'll have the energy to do things. So that's where the cortisol cuts in, and that's where you're hardwired. So you're literally uptight the whole time. And to do that, once the cortisol's cut in, because it's the same process in effect, the cortisol cuts in from the adrenal glands here at the back. So once that's in, then you stay hardwired more or less until you can actually start to reverse the bodily processes like the inflammation and the quickening of everything. So to reverse that, you then start to bring everything down and start to function again, so to speak. But so many people are literally 24/7 hardwired, it makes you very reactive, and you treat it as normal in a way. So you then start to get everyday things like insomnia. So can't sleep, but you come to accept it. And you start to get stomach problems as well after a few weeks, because basically the body, it's a very primeval reaction, this. The body will move fat in the form of cholesterol from the liver. It'll move it from the middle to the places where you need it, so like arms and legs, so to speak. So after a while, that's when you start to get stomach problems as such. So actually,
it's all very clever, isn't it? I mean, it just all happens without us thinking about it at all.
Absolutely.
So we consciously have to change that. Is that what you're saying?
Very much so, but you can do it. Well, first of all, you've got the everyday inputs, like diet, like phones, screens, etc. They will actually trigger adrenaline all the time and hardwire you completely. Not to mention the ultra-processed foods destroying your gut bacteria, because 37% of your neuropeptides you find in the gut as such. So therefore, mental health is not just about in your head at all, far from it. The head, if you like, is all the way through us. It's about, if you like, 8 other areas. So we've got neuropeptides, we've got your immune system, you've got your polyvagal system, and I was talking about the vagus nerve in a minute, I'll come back to that. You have your back and spine. Now your back is a super highway of connections, because it's connected to every soft organ tissue as such, as is the vagus nerve. You have the gut and the microbiome, and then you have your physical skeleton of how that reacts. And there's all sorts of areas which you can work with, which will and take the pressure off all your organs as well. And then you've got the everyday inputs. So that's 8 areas which actually make up your mental health in effect. So just coming back to the vagus nerve, yes, it's so if you're aware of that, again, you can work with them. And suddenly your mental health doesn't become so much an effort as a lifestyle. And then that can be applied. Well, if you like, you just become different in effect. And then you start to interact very differently with the outside world. So coming back with the vagus nerve, this is important because, well, the vagus nerve is the biggest nerve in your body. And it is made up of several nerves. And it finishes under the tip of your tongue. And it goes right way through your body. It regulates your heartbeat, but also whatever the vagus nerve picks up translates into all your other organs as well. Now, this goes through the atlas joint here. So if you feel behind your ears, you've got two little points there. So that's C1. So that's where your spine enters the brain. So if you put pressure on that, that translates through the vagus nerve. And negative pressure can mean inflammation in all your organs, and that's going to wind you up even more. So what I'm going to show you, just as a starting tip, if you like, is, believe it or not, how to get up out of a chair.
All right.
Now, you think, hang on a minute, Dave is going to do this every day. There we go. Oh, good, the camera's followed me. So now the thing is, most of the time when you get up out of a chair, you do this. It's like a vertical takeoff, and it hits the bottom of your spine. The pressure then goes onto the vagus nerve through the atlas joint, and suddenly you've got inflammation. Well, not suddenly, but you get inflammation. I think how many times in a day you get up out of a chair?
Well, exactly. And our chairs are a bit lower than that.
Oh, right, absolutely. More pressure on your spine. So this is the way to get up out of a chair without causing an adrenal shot, in effect. So first of all, I'm right-handed. So my right leg goes back. So instead of going up, I'm going to like arc when I get up. So I put all the pressure on my right leg. And as I get up, I go like that.
Sort of walk out your chair.
Sort of walk out your chair, absolutely, yeah. So I'm not doing this, I'm doing this.
Right.
So it's a matter of habit, really, like most things. But that in itself, connected with breathwork, which we'll have a look at in a minute, will make just an immediate difference. It'll begin to take that pressure off and completely starting to reduce that inflammation and start to regulate your breathing more, such. So that is a first bit of background. Hopefully is fairly straightforward and simple.
I have to try it on a tiny chair.
Yes, absolutely. So the next part really is breath work and breathing, right, which again, everyone takes for granted. Everyone thinks, right, we're breathing correctly, but we're not. We are not. And funny, working with early years is a really good time to do this, because I wish I'd known now what in my youth, it would have made quite a difference. So most people breathe like this. Breathe in through the mouth and pull their stomachs in. Now, breathing really needs to use your diaphragm and such. So your diaphragm is like a big cage with your lungs in effect. So if there's anything you take from me today, is do not breathe in through the mouth if you can help it. Now, you're not going to die if you do so. It's all about carbon dioxide. So carbon dioxide is a double-edged thing, because if you take in too much, it makes the blood sticky. The body has to work twice as hard to get that oxygen out of the blood, and it creates an adrenal shock, just like that. Now, the other side of that carbon dioxide is that you need, the oxygen is removed by hemoglobin. So you need carbon dioxide to be able to do that, to separate the oxygen from the blood, but not too much. So doing this and pulling your stomach in is not going to be the way to do it. So if you, the correct way is breathing in through the nose and out through the nose, or in through the nose and out through the mouth, but pursed lips. So your out breath is twice as long as your in breath. The other more tricky thing, and this is where babies and early years do this naturally. So as you breathe in, I'm just going to stand up on that. So as you breathe in, your stomach comes out in effect. So feet shoulder width, imagine tree roots securing you, really earthing you. So I'm just going to do just a simple breath like this. Stomach rising and breathing out. Stomach falling and breathing in. Stomach rising and breathing out. Stomach falling. It's as simple as that. And as you do,
you have to consciously think of doing that all the time. It's going to be quite hard work.
Well, actually, to start with, and then it becomes habit, really, as everything, like the getting up and sitting down. So really, and it is a conscious effort to start with for most people, because babies do this naturally anyway. As they breathe, their stomachs rise anyway. But we seem to have the habit of doing that as such. So what we do, breathing in that way, also helps to massage the vagus nerve, which really helps to take down that inflammation, but also gives your heart a massive boost, because your heart pumps 2,000 litres of blood a day through your body. Okay, we've only got 7 or 8 pints, but it also pumps it upwards through all these tiny capillaries in your brain. It's a massive effort. So the diaphragm actually becomes a muscle, or is a muscle, and helps your heart pump that blood. But you've got to get the diaphragm to connect with the heart. So breathing in that way helps to do just that. So it takes a massive load off the heart.
Wow.
Such.
So why do we stop? Why do you think children stop doing this?
Do you know, I'm not sure. Yeah, I mean, partly
observe the children and see if they are breathing properly or not.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it, particularly when they're starting to run around and find their feet, etc. I think they need more energy, more breath. So, because I remember as a kid, I certainly did that, and most people still do, really. But yes, that's an interesting point, really.
Sort of unlearn it.
Oh, yeah,
something makes us unlearn it.
Definitely. Well, it's a question of...
Sorry, go on.
No, carry on.
I was thinking, we often think you count, if you're in a tricky situation and you're about to lose it, you know, you often take a deep breath and count to 10, don't you? You know, it tends to be a...
It's just, yeah, absolutely.
Is that actually helping us? Is that actually helping us?
Not at all.
All it's doing is giving us some space, I suppose.
Well, all it does is giving you loads more carbon dioxide, and it's making it harder to remove that oxygen, really. So from effect, every time you do a really deep breath through your mouth, you are triggering more or less an adrenal shot. So every time without realizing it, so as you breathe in, ping. It's particularly in the teaching situation as well. So many teachers at any level, really, just sort of breathe in, if you like, and it doesn't take much at all, because I think when you're teaching, you've got a very heightened sense of awareness, alertness, and it doesn't take much to trigger that adrenal shot. So even just something happening over here, you have to stop it, bang, and that adrenal shot cuts in yet again. So basically your pattern is like this all day, and then roundabout.
With the greatest respect, because I know that you've taught older children, but with little children, I mean, there's always something happening, because their abilities are so different. You know, they're not like a class of 7 or 8 or 9 year olds where pretty much they're all compliant and at the same stage of development and learning exactly the same thing in the class, you know, from the lesson plan, as it were.
Yes,
with little children, their abilities are so varied. We call it the unique child in early years. We really do think of, I mean, I think all education, every stage of education is to think like that, but in the early years we're very, very attuned to the fact that children are all very different and respond in different ways and want to need to learn different things at different times in their own way that suits them, etc. So for the adult, it's really very okay. The ratio is higher or better in early years. You know, with babies, it's 1 to 3 or 1 to 4 with 2-year-olds, or 1 to 5 because the government changed it recently with 2-year-olds, and with children 3+, it's 1 to 8. In my nurseries, though, we staffed it at 1 to 5. It's a very pressurized job. It really is full on all the time. You know, the children, be like when I had my puppy. I mean, a puppy's another scenario. She's quite old now, but when I had my puppy, I mean, a baby at least will lie still on one spot. It doesn't run away. But what I'm saying is that little children are on the go all the time. They can't sit as we do in class in school behind a desk, for example, for 5 minutes. They're not capable of doing that. So
older children find it hard.
Sorry?
Older children find it hard as well. I can promise you.
Oh no, they do. But what I'm trying to, I do, and they do, and I'm not advocating that any child should sit behind a desk ever. But what I'm trying to make it clear the difference between a primary school or a senior school child and a child under 5, and also the pressures that puts on the adults, regardless of how many adults are in the classroom, because actually a 1 to 8 ratio with 3 and 4-year-olds is really hard going. In fact, and if they're younger, I mean, if you've got 2 babies crying and you've got 3 members of staff in the room, you've got 2 babies crying, that's 2 members of staff dealing with those 2 babies that are crying, and 1 member of staff, the other what would it be? I don't do maths very well. 7 children to look after on their own.
Absolutely.
So it is very, very pressurized. So I can see how this is really, really important. I can see that.
Definitely, because you're protecting yourself, really.
Yeah, and you need to look after you. When we say in mental health, don't we? We have to look after ourselves, put on our own oxygen masks before we can help other people. But I think naturally people that work certainly in the early years look after the children first and put themselves second.
Of course. Absolutely.
So I think.
So what I was going to do was to run through 2 basic routines, and there's some you can do these with, say, 3 years upwards or thereabouts as well. Exactly the same things. So let's go back to breath. We're going to have breath, what we call switches. So switches is an exercise which can change how you feel in under 1 minute. So you can change your feeling, change the thought, change the action in effect. So first of all, we need to just do a bit of reinforcement on that basic breath. So these are 5 or 6 basic breathing exercises, but you can do them together as one combination, like when you get up in the morning, or you can do selective ones with the children as well, like from when you come in at break time and think that you want to change how they feel. So from a playground chaos to do, to be a little more centered, etc. So the first one is the basic abdominal breath. So I always try and get people to do this standing up if possible. So like we just did. So feet shoulder width, imagine those tree roots. So always being earthed as much as possible. And then hands on your tummy. And so should we just do 3 basic breaths together? So you can do yours sitting down.
I'm sitting down though.
Absolutely, that's fine. So just do one out breath through the mouth, just to purse lips. Okay, so when you're ready, breathing in through the nose, stomach rising. And just gently release, purse lips. The more you do this, the stronger it gets every time. Breathing in. And breathing out. And breathing in. And breathing out. So what's happening in effect is you are changing your biochemistry in spite of yourself. Just by doing this, things will change beneficially anyway. So just to remind the children and you, so in my left hand, there's the most beautiful flower I've ever seen or smelled. In the right hand, it's a magic candle. So every time I blow the candle out, it comes back on again. So what we're going to do first of all is breathe in and smell the flower. So breathing in. And gently breathing out. Oh, it's come back on again.
Blowing the candle out.
Yeah, so, but it's come back on again. It's a magic candle. So now we're going to smell the flower again, etc. So you can do that breathe. So that's to remind them. Now, also at this stage, with the, you can blow up a balloon as well. So you can do this as an adult, but also these are particularly good for children as well. So you start with your stretchy balloon and you start, so we're breathing in, so breathing in through the nose. And now blow the balloon. When your hand comes out. Okay, we're breathing in again. And now next part. And last breath, breathing in. And finishing the balloon. Right, don't let the air out. Oh. So, right. So, and they're not a bit complicated, so we can just let it go. So, off it goes again. Right, so we're ready to blow the balloon up again. So we can do that with children. Now, there's quite a few other exercises we can do with children, but I'll just go through the basic ones for adults first as well, if we've got the time. So the next one really is something which mindfulness is quite familiar with. So I'm right-handed. So I'm going to take my index finger on my right hand and I'm going to put that at the base of my thumb. So as I breathe in, I move my finger up to the top and pause and breathe out. I move my finger down to the bottom of the inside of the thumb and pause and breathing in up to the top of the next finger and pause and breathing out down to the bottom. Okay, so you can go literally from thumb to little finger and back again. And children of quite a young age can actually manage that very well, can do that as well. But you can do this as an adult too. Now the next one, the square breath, is a really significant, it's called a box breath or square breath. It's a very common breath. So I'm just going to demonstrate this. So feet shoulder width, tree roots, and with my right hand, I'm demonstrating here. So breathing in through the nose. I'm going to count 1, 2, 3, and hold 1, 2, 3, and release 1, 2, 3, and rest 1, 2, 3. So this is in the form of a square. That's why some people call it a box breath. Now, the optimum number of breaths in a minute is about 8. Most people breathe at the rate of 20-25 breaths, and it's all trapped up here in the top here. So it's not an Ofsted target. You don't have to suddenly get to 8 breaths. If you do, it's quite dangerous. So in your own time over weeks or months, you can go from the other way. So you can start 3 is the normal one you start with. Then after a week or so, extend to 4. And you'll find, particularly in your kids as well, that it's not so much of a stretch to be able to do that. if you start with that, then it's a bit too much. So never, ever strain the breath. If it gets too much, just let it go in effect. So that's the square breath. Now, the last one for teachers is the alternative nostril breath. So I'm right-handed, so I've got my thumb and my next finger with me. So I'm going to put my thumb, doesn't matter which side, right or left, on your nose, and keeping the other nostril open. So we're breathing in through this nostril. So breathing in, stomach rising, block that nostril and breathe out the other side. Keep that nostril open, so breathing in. And block that one and open the other and breathe out. And that's it, really. It needs a bit of practice. But what that does as well, you have the olfactory nerve here behind the nose at the top. And that regulates your breathing as an automatic response. But also the brain works in opposite lobes. So you can, at the start of the day, particularly for teachers or for adults, it's a really useful thing to do. But after a while, you can introduce that to the children once they are familiar with the other exercises. So literally at the beginning of the day, when it's sit down on the mat and it's register time, you can easily do this. And the kids absolutely love it. And it doesn't take long, literally after a week or so, that you begin to notice a difference in their behavior. It could be slight to start with, but the more you do it, the more your intelligent body cottons onto it and works with it, so to speak. So those are the basic breaths.
So for the adults,
yeah.
When do you suggest they do these? Before the day, middle of the day, end of the day?
Yes. So, for example, if you're feeling stressed, you can literally do a square breath. So even that doesn't take long. You don't have to do the hand actions or anything. You can just take a minute, perhaps, and do that, even if you're out to the loo or whatever. But it's always a good thing to do them when you get up and also when you go to bed, because as sure as eggs, teachers are so full of adrenaline and cortisol, etc., that they find it hard to switch off. Mm-hmm. So literally, bedtime is change the feeling, change the thought, change the action. And these breath work, together with a couple of switches, which we'll look at in a minute, will help to do that.
I'm interested in these switches. Are these switches a bit like NLP?
Well, yes, in a way. NLP is the idea, again, it's brain focused again with NLP, but the idea is if you introduce a notion or an idea, then if you do it enough, the brain creates a new neural pathway. And it's the same, I suppose, for the intelligent body. But it's sort of like that, but it's not, if you see what I mean.
Trust me to throw something into the works. Sorry, carry on.
Not at all, no. That's a fair question. The first one is called a figure of 8. So we get the kids to do this. And I was working with some 4-year-olds a couple of weeks ago, and they managed this very well. So first of all, you just do this in front of you. So very slowly, you draw a figure of 8 sideways in front of you. And of course, you get like this to begin with. No, just slow it right down, just nice. So
that'd be a card track for our children, perhaps.
Absolutely, a card track, definitely. So then 2 fingers on your leading hand, I'm right-handed, put that on your forehead. Now, if you're doing it standing up, feet shoulder width, tree roots. You can do it sitting down. And now around about 10 times, a little bit of pressure. And just reproduce that on your forehead.
All right.
So you do this about 10 times. You can close your eyes. Oh, much slower, much slower. Can you see how slowly I'm doing it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, as far as the kids go, that's all they need to know, really. Because what is happening is it's producing a substance called oxytocin, which is the only substance the body produces which counteracts adrenaline and cortisol. So if you do this literally and you can mix and match with the breath work as well. So these basic routines, if you do them every day, will change the way you feel, think, and act. And take that sort of, begin to take that adrenaline and cortisol out of you, or drain it, and replace it.
I could see this. I could actually see this working quite well if it was done on a regular basis in the children's rooms. As the adults do it, the children join in different times of the day.
Definitely. And we've also, well, I've also written some other workshops and things for children as well, sort of core workshops, which looks at various issues.
Yeah, we're coming on to that at the end, Phil. I'll give you all your details and everything so people can check it all out.
Yeah, absolutely. But I'm saying these are something you can do on a daily routine basis, so to speak. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so that's figure of 8. Now, acupressure. So you probably had acupuncture, maybe?
No, I haven't.
No? Okay, so acupuncture is the ancient Chinese art of working with, in other words, basically, they see the body as fluid and removing blocks. So there's 12 meridians, and each meridian has got a title. So the kidney meridian, for example, starts in your big toe, or more or less, and comes up. I come out here. Zoom out further. No, camera's not listening. So it comes up here, and it then comes all the way here, round the back, and it finishes here between the sore spot here between the collarbones, and it's the K27 point. So the kidney 27 point. Don't worry about all the technical stuff. Now, what you therefore do is you, along the way, there's like little amplifiers. That's the point where you put the pins in. But we don't use pins, we use tapping as such.
Okay.
So it's approximate. So you don't have to be bang on the spot, so to speak, as long as you're in the area. And it's about a 15-second tap. Now, what I've done is put together taps, which there's millions of different tapping combinations. So I've just put together 6 taps or 5 taps and a hold, which is specifically to do with stress, in effect. So the first one is here beneath your nose. So just tap. That's it. And of course, sometimes the kids go, oh, like it's all over the place. No, just and now under the chin. And you put this together like a routine, really.
Something to do if you make your children line up.
Oh, absolutely.
I don't think little children should be lined up at all. You see, so that give them something useful to do.
I know it cuts at an early stage, though, doesn't it? All the lining up, etc. Yeah. So the next one is left hand, and at the top between little finger and the next finger. So just tap here. So zoom in closer. You can see here.
Yeah.
Okay, and then chop. So this is the karate chop. And then both wrists. So I've brushed it a bit here to make sure we get it all in. I can't
see your wrists. So,
okay, so there we go.
Like that.
Yeah. And the other one. And then the last one is more of a hold. So I'm right-handed. So let's try and, so literally I put my right thumb, because I'm right-handed, over my left one and just hold my hands together like that. And then you just squeeze gently and you'll feel your heartbeat coming through quite quickly. So you hold that for about a minute. So this is for both children and, well, all of these really are for children and adults.
We need to devise a nursery rhyme to go with it.
Absolutely, absolutely, yeah. Yes, I have the old, what's it called, the progressive muscle exercise, a version of that, which has got a rhyme to go with it. Absolutely, there's so much we can do. Okay, now, with the same idea of acupuncture. So should we just do that once again?
Yeah, we do the other side.
Yeah, so start with, okay, so start, I fit under the nose. So when you do this, you literally do at least three circuits of this. And the kids pick it up quite quickly. Under the nose and chin. Yeah, it's no 10 to 15 seconds. Left hand, little finger, whoops. So like that. Chop. Wrist. Wrist. Hold. And already I can feel quite a difference within me.
I think I'll have to practice. I'm not very in tune. I'm actually, when I was talking with Amanda Peddle,
yes,
last one in a Spark debate before, I don't think I'm very in tune with what my body's telling me at all.
Well, I think it goes for so many people, including me as well. Yes, the more you do, the more you become, because so many people just live there.
Yeah, that's why I say I think I'd have to practice.
Yeah,
but I can see that as incorporating that into a children's rhyme in early years would be really good for everybody. If somebody could make one up, maybe somebody listening will make one up and share it with us.
Fantastic.
And then it could be done morning story time, afternoon story time, as part of every day happening.
Because the key to this is little and often. So literally 10-15 minutes maximum.
We won't get our children sitting for 10-15 minutes maximum. More like 5. But
yeah. We'll do it in 5 minutes. Absolutely. And specific times, like when they're coming from the playground, like, we want to put our different hat on them and all that type of thing. So following on from the acupuncture, this is called pull my thumb.
So hang on a minute, Dave. So why are these switches? Why do you call them switches?
Switches, because they begin to change how you feel in under 1 minute. So you're switching how you feel. And the more you do them, the more likely it is you'll start to feel different under a minute.
So if somebody wants to make up a rhyme, it could be the helpful rhyme or something, and children could be directed to, let's sing the helpful rhyme as part of their co-regulation, perhaps.
Yeah, it's like, let's build a different rhyme. Let's yeah, I
can see that working.
Well, have a think about that. Say yes, because a lot of what I've done with Cool Pod has expanded because I've been asked to do things I haven't really thought about before, to make things work. Yeah, absolutely. So
okay, sorry, I interrupted you again. Carry on. We're going to do some more.
I was trying to find a piece of paper to go with this, but I haven't. No. Okay. Don't worry. So we can do this with just the thumb. So I'm right-handed. Here's my thumb on the left hand, and literally I just hold it quite firmly and gently pull. And for 1 minute, you close your eyes and breathe. And you can just work with the thumb. Now, each of your fingers on your left hand do a different thing. So I can't remember what the thumb is connected with. It might be fear. I can't remember. And then if you want to, you can then do each finger in turn. But the thumb's the most important, really. Etc.
Okay.
So, an accumulation of these things, the breath work and the switches, and you can do them. You don't have to do all 5 of each. You can do a couple of always start with the basic breath, maybe a flowering candle and a square breath, and then go on to a couple of switches, and you can mix them up, and yeah, so that's enough to keep you for the first few weeks. Yeah, and you're doing it for yourself as well, and that should really it's an entry point of practical things you can do, which will definitely make a change, rather than like an impossible life. You've got to go on 6 courses and go to a Tibetan monastery for 6 months or something. This is.
I mean, if you do yoga, I don't do yoga, but I believe yoga sometimes has breath work in it, doesn't it?
Oh, it's fantastic. Yoga's amazing. I mean, that's something I've never done, but okay. I ought to. Well, no, I ought to, but no, yoga. If people are doing yoga or want to start yoga, do it. Fantastic. Yeah.
Our next Spark Debate actually is with Louise, who is a gut expert. I'm not sure if she will appreciate that term, but she, at the end of September, I'm talking to Louise again. So it's really interesting that all the people I choose to talk to sort of cross over. They're all you all talk about different things, but for the same reasons. But they're all useful in their own way. So it's really good.
Well, everything's related in our bodies, everything. So mind, body and feelings together. Yeah. And it's the bio loop. That was I was trying to remember. And also the chemicals which are produced, therefore can also produce different feelings in you as a result of those chemicals generated, so to speak. So it's continuous. It's continuous.
Right. Okay. Wow. Well,
I do have a pack which I could let you have, and you could email to people who.
Okay, well, everybody's going to have. You'll have everybody's details who's on the Spark Debate tonight, and then if people want to contact you, they'll be able to do that through the details that are coming up in a moment. So I think we can bring it to a close there, Dave, unless there's anything else you want to say.
No, I think it's been an absolute pleasure, and so enjoyed it. Thank you.
Okay, lovely having you.